1 second, guys, the cameras have changed. Okay, guys, we are back. Apologies for that little blip at the beginning there. A window changed size on my settings and that moved all the cameras about. But we are now live, so thank you for joining us. Please do share this link out for the stream so we can get as many people in here and we can talk FPL. Also, please do check out our Patreon. It's something we've just started. It is a link in the description down below, so feel free to check that out and any other links. And let's start talking Game Week 3 and Game Week 4 as I pass over to Nim to start the proceedings.
Yeah, thanks, Jay, and welcome everyone to the stream. As always, feel free to get those questions in the chat. I know you have been already. In a week where lots of wildcards were used, including 2 of our very own wildcats, it's resulted in a polarizing week for many, definitely in the FPL community. But we'll get started by reviewing how we got on with our teams. It's just a bite-sized review, so if you want to know a bit more, go to each of our channels to check out how we got on. But Brett, why don't you talk us through how you got on this game week?
Sure. Hey guys, I'll try and make this quick. I don't want to talk about my team too much. So use the wild card. Obviously lost confidence in my opening squad, and I was sat at around 2.7 million, I think. So not the best start. And lots of players like Pookie, De Bruyne were emerging, and I don't know. I just kind of hit the button because I lost confidence in my squad. So I decided to accommodate a lot of big hitters in the team. So I've got the likes of Sterling, De Bruyne, and Harry Kane, who obviously I had a lot of hopes for heading into the Newcastle at home fixture. And that's the issue with only wildcarding after 2 weeks, is that I thought I had built up enough information there to suggest that Newcastle were potentially the whipping boys of the game week. I fancied Kane to perhaps get a big score, and that could be my way to jump back up the rankings a bit. But it couldn't have gone worse, really, captain-wise. Obviously, Kane blanking, as we all know. And I think the most frustrating thing about the Kane blank is that all the other captain choices delivered. So in the top 5 captaincies, Aubameyang, Aguero, Sterling, and Salah all returned points. And not only did I get the Kane blank, but if I didn't have Kane, I would have captained Sterling. So I've lost even more points there just by having Kane. It was a bad wild card and a bad week. I took a punt on for 1 week on Walker Peters, so he's not a long-term option. I might get rid of him now for Luca Digne. That was just trying to bank a clean sheet at home to Newcastle. I really fancied Spurs in that fixture. Obviously, Lundstram and Wan-Bissaka disappointing, 0 points each, which is a bit annoying. I stuck by Heaton, and he got a clean sheet. And obviously, John McGinn was a player I was keen to get in from Villa as well. So good performance from them. And I guess the one notable choice for me was to get Laporte at 6.5 million over Zinchenko. And because I know Zinchenko's a fantastic option and he's so appealing because he's £1 million cheaper, but because I had the luxury of using the wild card, I was like, well, if I get Zinchenko in now and he starts getting rotated soon, I'm going to kick myself. It's another move that I have to worry about and another headache, So with such great fixtures coming up for City, I was kind of worried that in one of these nice home fixtures against Brighton or against Watford, that seems like the kind of game that Angelino could come in or Mendy could come in. And I don't want to have Zinchenko in a nice home fixture and miss an easy clean sheet opportunity. So that's kind of what I told myself. And that's why I kind of spent the extra money on Laporte, because Man City's fixtures are so nice now. I'm hoping I can just set and forget these 3 City players, Sterling, De Bruyne, Laporte, and hopefully watch the points roll in. But yeah, a poor game week. However, I did make a lot of profit on team value. So that's the one small positive. And yeah, I don't know, not feeling very confident going into the next week, but just got to see what happens.
Cool. And so, Kurt, you were another that wildcarded this week. How did you get on?
Yeah, same as Brett, really. Not too well. And I always feel like I don't really describe things too well. So I've got a few visual aids to help me out. First of all, I went against my own advice at the start of the season. I went back to my old ways. Did not happen too well. And also, I didn't do this. Another big something else I didn't do.
Yeah, me neither, mate. Me neither.
so not too well in general. 43 points I ended up on. So it wasn't good at all this week. I was hit with a couple points of bad luck. I do think the Newcastle result was out of the blue, but Spurs played poorly, so can't have any fault about that. If they'd have got that penalty and scored it, would that have raised the spirits? Who knows? But a clean sheet was gone, and Son didn't do anything, so that was that gone. The only thing I can rue really is Cantwell not having him in the team, but having a £4.5 million option, and thinking that they're not going to score against Chelsea is a decent thought to have. But of course, he scored against Chelsea, so another good return though for him at 4.7 now. So I got him in at the right time. Other than that, the team is looking in a bad state. There was a lot of 2 points. Sterling got a goal, Mount got a goal, Aubameyang got an assist, despite the best efforts of Lucas Torreira to miss it after he completely missed the ball. Martial got credited with an assist, but I haven't seen the Man United goal yet, or apart from the Patrick Van Aanholt goal. But I'm almost sure I was told he didn't get the assist, but he did get the assist. So I don't know if that was a bit fluky. But I'm also left with injury doubts of 3 of my players, Mount, Martial, and Walker-Peters. So in terms of how wildcards go, I've gone below the average, and I've potentially needing a -4 to have players playing next week. The only thing I did well was I benched Digne. Took a bit of a risk, thinking Aston Villa have looked a lot better than the scoreline suggests. I mean, you look at the Spurs game, they had them beat until Spurs showed that they got quality and ended up taking charge of the game. And then the second game of the season against Bournemouth, it was just 2 sloppy bits of defending, 2 mistakes, 2 goals. And that's all there was to say about it. So I had a feeling Villa would come back stronger, and they did. And Digne on the bench was a good choice. Besides that, poor week. And I've got some catching up to do now, considering I started well. And now I've got to start digging out those results again, which is not going to be a nice place to be, because I started like this last season and ended up finishing outside the top 2 million. So we'll see.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll rip the plaster off here. And if anybody watched my video or follows me on Twitter, you will know that my game week was terrible, awful, horrible, shocking, terrible. Did I say very bad? Yeah. It was the result of 3 terrible things, effectively. The first being a -4 for 2 defenders that got 0 points in Lundstrom and Wan-Bissaka. One of those being selling Gilbert, who I hear has now scored this evening.
Wow.
So, feeling quite annoyed about that. The hit was bad enough, but the 0 returns were even worse, of course. The second being not owning Pookie, no party. And yeah, I thought I could maybe get away with one more week without him, with him facing Chelsea. The second he got that first assist, it was just king to Pookie straight away. No, I didn't even think about it. Like, it's the fastest transfer I've ever made in history. So, and the third issue being the wrong captain choice. Same as Brett.
Yeah.
Kane, he ruled me in on that fixture. My gut was telling me Sterling most of the week, because I was thinking this just feels like Cardiff all over again. I didn't do the Cardiff thing last season, but I could see it kind of happening again. And
isn't it so weird though that, like, before I had Kane, I wildcarded, I was so excited to get him for Newcastle, and the moment you're locked in and you've got him captained, I was just saying, I know he's going to blank now.
Yeah,
it's almost like I just knew it was coming.
Yeah, I agree with you. It was that thing where, like, my gut was initially like best team, Kane captain straight away. And then I did it and I sat back and I went, oh, hang on, this doesn't feel right. Like, I feel like this should be on Sterling, apart from anything else. I've been saying to myself, like, when it comes to captaincy, always go with the crowd early doors. And yes, okay, Kane was quite highly captained, but maybe not as much as one of the City boys. So yeah, it was a bit out there and quite disappointed, because I did kind of hope he would get something there, but I think I knew he wasn't going to, and so it kind of puts me in an awkward spot. However, I got 40 points, so I got even less than Kurt. My only saving grace, I guess, is that I didn't use my wild card, but that's not to say even if I do that I'll do any better. So 36 with the hit, and I've fallen a long ways into the red, like a long ways. After such a great start, I'm like now nearer the million rather than up in the hundreds. I'm somewhat torn on what to do now. I don't feel like my team is far off some of the wildcard template teams, if I'm honest. So it almost feels a bit of a waste to use a wild card this week. But I feel like I need more City attack for definite. That's one thing that's lacking. I only have one City player at the moment. The only way that happens is either using the wild card or to take a hit. I feel like I'm in a lot of trouble, and it's the Inters really that's confusing me a bit. And I think this is what a lot of people are feeling at the moment, because I'd happily take a -8 this early in the season to sort my team out. So I'd happily take that points hit to get in an Aguero or a KDB this week alongside Sterling, and not even think about it because it's so early on in the season. But I think what's kind of looming in my head is that it's international break next week, and I could take that hit this week, and then somebody gets injured in international, or I feel like after taking that hit, my squad isn't quite right, so then I need to wildcard. And then I've kind of just taken the hit for nothing almost. And I know it's a what if game with FPL, it always is. And anything can happen at any point. So I could say, oh, I'll take my -8 and anything could happen, or I'll sit here and I'll do nothing and anything can happen. We know that. But it just kind of feels wrong to take such a big hit ahead of an international break where I might wildcard, or I might find myself in trouble needing to wildcard or needing to take more hits. So it's a really difficult situation. I think if City were facing maybe one of the top 6, it wouldn't be quite so bad, but it really does feel a bit like I'm possibly sleeping on them going another week. So I'm a bit stumped, to be honest, lads. And on that note, I'll pass you over to Jay.
Okay, so I believe I had the best game week out of all 4 of us, but that's only seen me get up to about 1.5 million now. But at least I'm not in the 2 million club, and we're starting to see green arrows, so I'm happy with that. I took a -4 going into this game week to get De Bruyne in, get Digne in, and to get Barnes in. And what kind of seems to be the story of this game week for me is it looked absolutely awful, apart from Salah in Friday and Saturday's games. And then Sunday, all the points flew in, and we had a decent game week with De Bruyne, Sterling and Barnes all returning points. The issues with my side currently, Deulofeu, Jota, and Perez. Those are the three that are sitting there, and I'm like, they're just not delivering. Although Deulofeu's underlying stats haven't been too bad. So as far as my moves going forward after a 59-point game week, it is probably going to be whatever I have to do to get Pookie in. Just because, yes, he could stop scoring, but I just feel like if I keep not bringing him in and he keeps continuing to score, it's just going to be a detriment to my season. There is the international break, but I'm thinking -4 to get Pookie in. Most of my players are starters. Rico's maybe debatable, but there was the injury for Daniels. So I might actually have 15 starters going into the international break. So maybe I can risk not using my wildcard, but of course we never know till the international break actually happens. So it could be Cantwell coming in for Perez, just to make sure I've got the money for Pookie. And then a big surprise for me was Dendoncker not starting, which means I'm not as fond of him as I initially was compared to Cantwell. And then maybe he will change to someone like a Mason Mount or a McGinn with my next transfer if everything goes to plan. But yeah, I'm happy. I'm happy to finally see some green arrows, and hopefully it continues.
Brilliant stuff. So a bit of a mixed bag there, and I think that kind of reflects the week that all of us have had in FPL. There's been some really great scores and those really not so great scores. And I think most of those great scores go with people that had Pookie in, really. It really does seem to be the kind of difference between a half decent game week and a not so great game week, to be honest. Okay, Brett, do we have a question in the chat before I give some of our Twitter ones a shout out?
Yeah, loads of questions in the chat, so I've taken note of them all, guys. This is quite a good one. So Super Sport Gaming wants to know, is KDB, Sterling and Aguero too overkill in terms of Man City options? What do you reckon, Jay? I mean, they've got some great fixtures coming up.
I mean, if he can do it, I would say go for it. The issue is, of course, how do you do that and then have a balanced side? You're relying on all of them scoring points every single game week, and whilst if you look at it from the last game, yes, they all return points. Is that going to happen every game? They'll need 2 or 3 goals at least in every game, which Man City are definitely capable of, but it needs to be spread out. And there's definitely the possibility of, say, Sterling scoring 3 goals or Aguero scoring 3 goals, and then the other players you've got aren't scoring points. And ideally, you want everyone to be scoring points. So if you had the money and you could easily triple up, so maybe later on in the season, I wouldn't see an issue with it if they had the fixtures and the form at the time. But right now, at the beginning of the season, I just think it's just a little bit too far.
What do you reckon, Nim? I mean, you really want Aguero, I would imagine. And obviously you wanted to start the season with him if it wasn't for him having missed the first game week, that kind of thing. So is Aguero coming back onto the radar for you? Would you potentially get all 3 of these if you could?
Actually, it's KDB that's been turning my head a little bit this season. That's not to say that I don't want Aguero. I would love Aguero. My kind of issue, I guess, with Aguero this season is that his price tag mainly. I feel like a lot of the cheaper options are doing. I mean, Poogie's doing just as well, for a lot less money, and KDB is a lot cheaper than Aguero is. I'm not ruling it out. I definitely, that Kane spot is either going to go down to a Barnes, and then either Martial or Trossard will become KDB, or Kane will go to Aguero, and I'll find a 5 mil nobody. Even, I might even do a J and go with Cantwell initially, and then, sort Dendoncker out a little bit down the line. It's just whether it's worth that hit this week for me. All 3, I have to agree with Jay. It really depends on balance. If you feel happy with the balance of your team with all 3 of them, then go for it. I would love all 3 of them, but I do feel a bit like I might then struggle to kind of have some of the other major kind of performing players in my team. So that's the bit that might put me off doing all 3, especially because actually I agree with what you said when you were talking through your team, Brett. is that I feel like some of the clean sheets might start coming in for Man City now.
Yeah.
And if you go, with all three attackers, then you're going to miss out on some of their clean sheets. And I don't have any City defence, and every week at the moment I'm there kind of fingers crossed that that they concede a goal.
Could you
Which is
please
not the
uncross
best
them for
way
me,
to-
please?
No, not yet.
Get one in then. Hurry up.
Wait until I wildcard and then fingers are uncrossed. But yeah, I do feel like, two City attackers and a defender is probably, if you're going to have three.
Yeah, I was going to actually say something similar, Nim, to be fair, because it is possible to have all three. I mean, especially if you've got the wild card still, or if you've, like me, I've just used my wild card. And because I've now got a heavy hitter like Kane up front, for me to get Aguero is a lot easier than it would be for someone who's got, maybe 3 budget forwards.
Mhm.
And obviously with Aguero, he's scoring every game. He's only played like 180 minutes as well, and he's got 4 goals already, and Aguero's such a reliable, safe option. Like, everyone loves Aguero in FPL, don't they? And the moment he gets a couple of
Nobody
goals, it's
loves
like,
him as much as me.
not as much as you, but he got 2 goals in the last game, and it's like, oh yes, Aguero's back. Like, and he's one of those options that you just love to have, but yeah, because we're kind of like trying to find where the clean sheets are coming from. Man City are like the one team. I know Liverpool as well had an amazing defensive record last year as well. So those 2 teams are like the ones that we can trust defensively. But with Adrian in goal for Liverpool and them being a bit shaky, Man City's like the only premium defense that I would think I feel pretty safe they're going to get some clean sheets. And that's why I was so keen to have someone like Edison or Laporte, who I know is going to play and will get those clean sheets. So the ideal triple up for me now is probably because I've got De Bruyne that I don't. It's when you don't have De Bruyne, you want him. But now that I've got him, I would rather have Laporte, Sterling, Aguero. I think
Oh, right.
if I had the perfect choice of the 3, that would be my triple up that I'd go
That's
for.
interesting.
But either way, a triple up of Man City, I think, is a very good option. It's almost not essential, but yeah, I mean, looking at their home fixtures and the fixtures they've got now, Brighton at home next, Norwich away, lots of goals there probably. Watford at home, Sterling got a hat-trick against them last season. There's a lot of goals for Man City here and potentially clean sheets. So,
Okay, well, let's stick with that particular subject. And Gish, I hope I've said that right, wants to know thoughts on KDB as captain. So, Kurt, what do you think? Out of the City options this week, do you think KDB is an option for captaincy?
No.
Ooh,
Quite comfortably.
just straight no there.
I'd say he's consistent. I mean, he's shown he's consistent, but that's like saying, oh, yeah, I might stick the armband on Callum Wilson because he's getting a consistent 5 points when you've got Raheem Sterling who's scored in every game. And I think Raheem Sterling, enjoys playing against Brighton. And the way Brighton look at the moment, they're looking a lot more attacking than normal, which means that if they go attacking and thinking, oh, we can hit City here, the minute they lose that ball, it's going to go straight down the other end. And the quickest man on the field is Raheem Sterling. He'll be at the end of every counter-attack. And I've got a feeling, so how confident I am, he's my captain at the moment. I mean, I've already used my wild cards. I've got to start saying, maybe I'm just blowing all my barrels a bit too early, but it is incredibly tempting to go Sterling triple captain this week. That's how confident I'm at, because I think if this was Chris Hughton's Brighton, no. Captain, fine, you get 1 goal. That's all right. But I feel like the way Brighton play at the moment, they've just got that air of sort of, against a bigger team, potentially ripping them to shreds. And I feel like Raheem Sterling's going to be at the end of it. I mean, De Bruyne could be good, but I think he's at that price point where he's doing what he needs to do, which is consistent enough points, but no mega hauls.
I mean, I would consider KDB if I didn't have any other City in my team. Put it that way.
Yeah.
I have Sterling, so he'll be my captain this week. So get ready for a blank, guys. Just putting that out there.
My captain.
if I
I'll
had
play my triple
Aguero,
captain. I lied. Not happening.
if I had Aguero, it would be on him, obviously. So if he's your only City player, then yes, captain, as far as I'm concerned. But otherwise, I would be more inclined.
Got all 3 of them out.
Yeah. I'd be more inclined to go Sterling or Aguero. That's my thoughts on it. Lads, you got any other thoughts on that?
To be honest, it's just the fact of who's more likely to score goals.
Exactly.
That's worth more than an assist.
Yeah.
And I think if you look at their games, Raheem Sterling is the one that's more likely to score, gets in better positions to actually score, higher XG on his chances, and De Bruyne's more likely to get assists. And FPL, more points and goals.
Exactly. It's almost double the points, really, isn't it? Like a goal is 5, and you need 2 assists for De Bruyne to get 6 points, you know? And De Bruyne is a quality player, but maybe he's not the most explosive. I mean, he could have scored in the previous game. He did have a very good chance.
Off of the Zinchenko assist.
Yeah, true. And Brian Ewell in the chat makes a good point as well. He's saying, like you said, Nim, it's only a KDB captain if you didn't have any other City options, but there's not really any teams out there that don't have either Sterling or Aguero, you know? It'd be hard to find a team that did just have De Bruyne, you know? So, Sterling does feel like a no-brainer.
He's had 12 shots in his 3 games so far.
Wow, cool. Okay, let's have another one from the chat then, please.
Cool, okay. 1 second. There's a question here from Deepak. He wants to know, is it time to move away from big at the back, which was obviously talked about heavily in pre-season, 5 defenders going for all the premiums. They were the players that, were the best value last season, but obviously not many clean sheets in the last 2 game weeks. So what do we think? Is there sort of a time to move on from the big at the back now? Is anyone here big at the back at the moment?
I mean, I suppose if you count 3 defenders from City, Liverpool, and then Digne,
that's pretty big.
That is pretty big.
That is pretty big, especially compared to some seasons that I used to have like lots of budget defenders.
But then I suppose I've got Lundstrom and Rico to counterbalance that. So for me, I think there's been a lack of clean sheets. I think Liverpool individual errors have cost them, and I'd suggest that there's been more chances for the teams playing Liverpool. I don't know if that's because the other teams have improved. They've been playing sides that are more likely to attack. So Liverpool is a worry for me. I think Alisson maybe gave the confidence to the back line a bit more than Adrian does. As far as Zinchenko and City, I think it's been unlucky there. I mean, what can you do about that Harry Wilson goal?
Yeah.
And
Nothing
then Digne.
at all.
I'm the one that ruined Digne, so apologies everyone. He got 2 clean sheets. But all of the 3 defenders I have, they've had chances to get attacking returns as well. So I'm quite happy to keep them. If I didn't have defenders that would offer both, then I'd be a bit more worried about being big at the back. So if you say brought in a defender that hadn't been getting any underlying stats for attacking returns, then I'd be a bit more cautious and maybe go to cheaper ones that they can still get the clean sheets, but maybe are offering a bit on the attack as well.
Yeah, I mean, every time Zinchenko plays, I'm kind of like watching like this.
I feel like it's coming, but it just hasn't yet.
Bombs forward, and it's like, oh, stop it, you're killing me! Like, go away! Like, go back, defend. So yeah, I am kind of just hoping Mendy hurries up and gets back, or that at least there's some news so that I can swap Wan-Bissaka to Zinchenko.
The tricky thing is at the moment, I mean, it's still early in the season, but we still haven't really identified another Matt Doherty of last season, have we? Granted, we've got Lundstrom at 4 million, which is incredible because he is playing in midfield.
Well, it's looking like it might be Gilbert now that I've sold him.
Yeah, true. Gilbert could be an interesting option at 4.4 now, which ironically is what happened to Doherty because he went down to 4.4, didn't he, at the start of the season? So yeah, it's either like the really big at the back players like TAAs, Robertsons that can offer, or Digne that offer the attacking threat, or you look at the 5.5. So I've got Wan-Bissaka, but he doesn't offer that, and it's almost like, I think it's about having, there's some teams that we've seen with 5 big defenders at the back, and that would worry me, but I jumped off Liverpool defence because of Adrian completely. And I do feel like one is needed, really. I watched that Arsenal game, and like Arsenal,
what was that formation?
Like Robertson and TAA were the most dangerous players in that game. So in the first half, I wasn't even worried about Salah. He didn't actually look that dangerous in the first half. It was TAA and Robertson. Both of them, I was like, oh my God, I've dropped both the Liverpool defenders, and they are like all over them. So I think one of those is needed, especially with Newcastle at home coming up and some, better fixtures for them. So just a nice balance, like Jay's got, really, maybe 3 big defenders like the Digne, TAA, maybe like Laporte, Zinchenko, and then you got the luxury of Lundstrom as well, to kind of counterbalance it. And Lundstrom can be rotated in and out of the squad now. He's a legitimate player to use. And, for game week 5, he's got Southampton at home. So I'll be playing Lundstrom in that one for sure,
Yeah. Agreed. Okay. At FF Scout _Jeff. Jeffers as another question for us later, but for now, you'd like to know our expectations for Salah versus Mane over the next few game weeks. So, Salah is leading the way in the stats at the moment. Obviously, Mane has played less minutes, but Salah has 3 goals and an assist to Mane's 1 goal and 1 assist. Salah is edging ahead in the XG as well, with 2.35 to Mane's 0.30. And when I look at Fantasy Football Scout's player comparison tool in their members area, Salah's overall summary is 57% to Mane's 43%. So it's still quite close between the two. I went without Salah last season for a few game weeks and it was absolutely horrendous. Like, I felt like I was pulling my hair out every week. I just did not like it. I joined Kurt's club and I didn't like it at all. Do I think Salah and Mane will be close at the end of the season? Hell yes. I mean, there's not even a question. They'll be close. I think for me, I would stick with it a bit longer until you feel confident on which you want to go forward with. So whoever you have, I'd probably stick with them until you know for definite which one is going to, do better. Really, until one significantly pulls ahead of the other, all we can do is choose one of those and just stick with it and run with it. But guys, I mean, there are 2 of us now on Salah and 2 of us with Mane, I believe. Is that right? So Jay is the other with Salah. I'm assuming you're not considering getting rid of anytime soon, Jay. I mean, you're like me, you still got your wild card, not considering it.
I mean, the only time I would consider it is if I thought the player I would bring in because of what I'm saving on the downgrade would be significant enough to counterbalance any difference between the two. But like you, I think season long they might be very, very similar in score. I do prefer the type of chances and situations Salah gets himself into. So I think if Salah hit the form of not last season but the season before, I think he would outperform Mane, just because I think his shots come from better areas sometimes than Mane's does. I mean, if we look at Mane's goal, it was a great finish from outside the box. Salah's goal was more like breakthroughs, penalties, the ones that are more likely to be converted. Not saying that Mane won't keep up like he did last year. I just feel more confident in Salah right now. So it would have to be a significant player that I'm trying to bring in to downgrade to Mane for me right now. But I could definitely see myself change my mind. I'm pretty sure after game week 2 I was touting that I thought Mane was more dangerous. So I've changed my mind again already. So
yeah, I think it's just so close. You probably just have to nail your kind of colours to a mouse really and stick with it. But Brett, as somebody who's gone from Salah to Mane on your wild card, I mean, it's not unusual for Kurt to do this kind of behaviour, but it's quite unusual for you, I have to admit. You stuck with Salah all last season when a few of us were considering jumping off.
I think it's worth saying, me and I believe I can say this with Brett as well, we're very close to jumping off Salah before that Bournemouth game last year. So it can just change that quickly.
So what's your feelings on it now, having done it? Are you feeling like you want Salah back? Are you happy to stick with Mane? What are you feeling about it now?
Well, it's only natural to feel a lot of regret because Salah, I drop him and he scores the first brace he's got since January, 2 goals. And normally, Mane's the one that kind of can hit a brace and Salah can chip in with the assists maybe. Obviously I feel gutted because I dropped Salah and he's punished me, so the natural reaction is, oh my God, I've dropped Salah, I want him back now. And the ownership does worry me because I played the wild card to try and jump up the rankings, but at the same time I've left myself vulnerable by selling Salah, which if I hadn't have done, I would have had a decent green arrow this week, so even though my Pookie transfer paid off, and I got McGinn, and I had Heaton, and I got some points there. All of that was undone by selling Salah because he got 15 points. He was maybe the third highest captain this game week. So yeah, I don't know. I always feel safer with Salah, I do always feel safer. And Arafat says in the chat as well, he is on penalties. That makes a big difference. He's on corners as well. There's more ways for him to get points. So naturally, I am going to feel bad about it now because, Salah returned and Mane blanked. And it wasn't a positive performance from Mane either.
So what will you do now? Will you stick, or do you think you'll start thinking about a sort of plan to get him back in should things continue the way they're going?
This is my exact dilemma now, because I do actually have $1 million in the bank this week. And initially that was to upgrade Walker-Peters as a 1 week punt up to Digne this week. But now, because Salah kind of punished me, I'm like kind of knee jerking back to Salah. Like, shall I just get him back in, admit I made a mistake, and just stick with Salah all season? That is something I'm weighing up, But at the same time, I don't want to be. I could easily do the hokey cokey, and then Mane will do well against Burnley. You can't predict these things. So I think I've got to stick for now. If Salah does really well against Burnley away and they've got Newcastle at home coming up, that would worry me. But, probably over the next... It's a decision that I have to kind of measure over the next 5 game weeks maybe, because over 1 game week, Salah's done the business in this week. But, over 5, maybe Salah gets 30 points and Mane gets 28 or 30 points, near enough the same. So I'll try and hold out for now, I think.
Yeah.
But I do feel safer with Salah. So I do feel like I've made a bit of a mistake, but I probably stick by my decision for now.
And Kurt, how are you feeling about it all? Because I know you were very no Salah last season, and then this season you
Say that.
you felt a bit like you could go back down the Mane route. So, where are you sitting with it all now? Do you feel like you've made a mistake selling Salah so early on, or do you just feel comfortable being back with Mane like you were last season? Where do you fit with all this?
Part of that statement is untrue. I've decided that I'm going to go back to last season and go full Kurt, because I don't own either. I own Bobby Firmino.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was the move I made. Yes.
Oh, so you didn't actually get Mane in, no?
No, I as I made in game week 1, our preview. No Mane is my motto for this season. I just think he's overpriced for what he gives, and it is what a lot of what Brett said is that you look at Salah's goals over the weekend. It's something that if you say, could you see Firmino do it? Could you see anyone else in Liverpool do it? You'd say no. No one's got that star quality. No one's got that sort of finishing prowess that Salah has. I've made a huge error. I can get him back. There's an easy way to get him back, but it's a -4 or a -8. And it requires getting rid of Son, because I can't get rid of Martial just yet, just because of the fact he might still be playing and he's a useful asset, got returns and everything. I don't like the way Spurs are going. I've just got a bad feeling about them this season, the way they're handling things. Can't get rid of Sterling. But I could also be waiting for that Firmino. Firmino brace didn't score or assist in this game against Arsenal. Granted, I think he was a bit. I think everyone was a bit unlucky the way Arsenal played at some times. It's something that I have found a bit strange with Arsenal, to go on a bit of a tangent, that they just have a couple of games every year under Emery. I say every year, a couple of games last year under Emery, where you think, what on earth are they doing? And this was one of those games thinking, Jesus Christ, you are asking. It's like you've jumped into a cage full of bears with sticks and you're poking them with them, thinking, oh, this is all right, this is fun. Eventually that bear's going to rip your head off. And it did. And it ripped the head off of Arsenal. Nice sort of metaphor there. But
bit aggressive, but yeah, I get it.
Into the 2 Arsenal fans that are sad.
But you have to agree.
It wasn't hard enough for us to watch that.
Well, I'm only stating facts.
You can't argue with his logic, though.
No, it's true. I mean, myself and Brett probably agree wholeheartedly that, when we were playing out from the back against Liverpool, it was like, what the hell are we doing? We are just asking for trouble here. Like, what is this? I even tweeted it out at the time. I was like, it was literally like, get a pillow and just wait for it to happen, because you knew it was coming. You know, it was just, shocking. Anyway, I feel like you deflected well there from the Salah Mane question.
But no, if you've got money for either, or you've got Salah or Mane, I would be looking to get Salah in. I was blinded in my decision just because I thought if I get Firmino in and I get Son in replacement of Salah, I've then got coverage of all the big six teams, and I've got players that I think could regularly get goals or assists. And Sterling, obviously, Martial, obviously, Aubameyang, obviously, are constantly going to be looking to get in the goals as they're playing basically as strikers this game. Mason Mount looks good. He's had 12 shots this season already. Son is normally on fire, but obviously Spurs had a very, very weird game week, and obviously Firmino, I think he's going to be a good option in the long run, considering his price. But if you've got to go one or either, I think it's got to be Salah. Because at the end of the day, you get a penalty, he's going to be taking it. He's taking set plays. He's got those extra points.
Given what you've just seen now with Liverpool against Arsenal, are you really thinking of selling Sonny? Because this is my kind of thing with Kane now this week, is that my initial reaction is, after watching Spurs, just to get rid. I'm done with Harry Kane. Like, seriously, 2 blanks now in a row. I'm done. Like, captain failure. I don't want any of it anymore. And for his price, it's ridiculous. But then I'm an Arsenal fan, and I know how bad we can be. And I'm sat here thinking, maybe it's a little bit stupid taking a -8 when, Harry Kane could easily punish us. Now, it's a little bit different, I think, with Kane to Sonny. I genuinely believe Sonny could get more points than Kane this game week, purely because it seems to be that Kane seems to be behind the attack every time it goes forward, behind Lucas, behind Lamella, and behind Sonny, as opposed to being ahead of those people.
Yeah.
Obviously, losing Ndombele has made a big impact on that.
Yeah.
And so, like, I might be holding out for a minor miracle, thinking that, I genuinely think Spurs can beat Arsenal, especially if we play, leave ourselves as exposed as we did against Liverpool. But do I think it will be Kane? No. However, I do think it could be Sonny. So I don't know if in your position, Brett, I'd be taking a hit. I'd be taking a hit to get them out. Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know what you mean, but it's just sort of what Brett said. It is, at the moment, it would be very, very knee-jerk. I look at my team this week, and considering the goals Spurs conceded and the way Arsenal tries to play against Liverpool, I've got Arsenal and Tottenham attack, and I've got Aubameyang, who, if Spurs defend like they did, he's just going to run through them every single time. And I've got Son, who, if Arsenal play out from the back, the minute they lose it, they're going to be spread open, and Son's just going to charge in there.
Yeah.
Then I've also, it would be knee-jerk, and I do like what it looks at my team at the moment this week. I think everyone's got good fixtures from what I've got.
I think if you're wildcarded, it might just be worth giving it one more week.
Definitely. You can find that, in previous seasons when I've wildcarded, like before I started taking FPL more serious, you would do a wildcard team specifically for that one game week, and you maybe get 80 or 90 points, but then you hadn't picked a team for the long term. So even though I didn't have a great week this week, and granted I haven't got Salah, but I picked a team that I could see. I mapped out the next 3 game weeks, and I thought, right, I've got this player for that week. I've got this player for that week. So even though I haven't had a great wildcard week in game week 3, I'm hoping that maybe, it could turn around and have a great game week in game week 4, So you're right, Nim. Like, a wildcard team can often deliver on the second time of asking,
Yeah, definitely. So, just think about it before taking the hit, at least, dude. I think it could be worth giving Sonny one more week. And if Kane and Son do not deliver against Arsenal, when, I genuinely think we are worse than some of the teams that we all bang on about as whipping boys, Newcastle,
Norwich.
Yeah, I was going to say Southampton, but they did quite well last week. But I genuinely think we can be as bad as some of those at the back when we get going. So I think it could be worth holding those Spurs players one more week. And if they do not deliver there, then I think you can say with some certainty at least that it's probably, even though they do have a good fixture again after that, it's up to you then if you want to spread your funds. Do you know what I mean? Because you've had enough of them. And knowing me, I'll sell Kane whenever I sell him, whether it's this week or next week, and he'll do really well. But
that's the thing, yeah.
So Brett's like, hurry up, Nim, and sell him, please.
That's the thing. The reason I was quite keen to get Kane was because I was looking ahead and I was looking at Spurs' home fixtures, and I was thinking, wow, I haven't got the fixtures in front of me now, but they've got some very favourable fixtures coming up, especially at home. And I was like, you know, I would just love to just set and forget Kane for like 8 weeks and just leave him there and rack up the points, you know. But obviously, it's mad what one game week can do. And he blanks at home to Newcastle. And then I'm sat thinking, well, can I ever trust captaining him now again?
I definitely,
you know?
I know.
Whereas like you can trust leaving it on Salah and Sterling. And granted, I dropped Salah to Mane because I thought, well, I don't need 3 captaincy options. I'll have Kane and Sterling as my captain options. Within one game week, a blank against Newcastle, I'm sort of like, am I actually going to captain Kane again now? You know, and so I brought him in for the long haul, and already I'm like, oh, like actually, if I sell him, I can actually make a lot of improvements to the rest of my team. And with Haller and Barnes and Pookie and all these budget strikers doing so well, it's almost like you can free up a lot. And if you're not going to captain Kane, I've got him now, but it's like, oh, I probably don't even need him if I'm not going to captain him. So it's tricky, but I'm definitely going to keep him for the North London derby. He likes to score against Arsenal. If I had known that Eriksen wasn't going to play, and you know that makes a big difference to owning Kane, you know, and obviously the transfer speculation, and Ndombele was injured, and you know I probably wouldn't have captained him if I knew all that stuff. But I don't know. I'll give him the London derby, get to the international break, and then maybe hit him out if I want to make some wholesale changes after game week 4.
I think for me, it's going to very much depend on Martial, because I genuinely feel like there are no other players that I want besides a City asset. And the only way I can do that is because I've already taken my transfer this week doing King to Pookie would be to do 2 more transfers, and that would, you know, mean moving Kane on. So if Martial is okay, then I think I'll try and stick it out one more week. However, if we get some definites, which is, you know, there seems to be some confusion on Twitter about what that definite is. Maybe you'll miss 1 week, maybe you'll miss 2, I don't know. Maybe you won't at all. That's the bit that's confusing me with keeping Kane. I think if everyone else is okay, then I'm probably going to keep him for the North London derby. If anything else crops up now the rest of the week, like something happens in the Carabao or Martial is definitely confirmed out, then I think I may just kind of go for it and take that hit and get the City boys and, you know, kind of kick the can down the road. But I really don't want to take a hit that early, especially to get rid of Kane, like you said, ahead of the North London derby. I mean, if we see him there and he doesn't do well there, then, or he's just spending too much time at the back, then I think until Ndombele is back, he's probably not going to be an option for the foreseeable. So.
Yeah, it's going to be a very different game. Newcastle obviously went there to sit back, 10 men behind the ball, or 9 men behind the ball.
Yeah, then again, they are just a frustrating team, aren't they, Newcastle? Yes, I mean, it could just be that Newcastle were very good on the day.
Yeah, you know, it's a Steve Bruce team, and no disrespect to them, but I guess maybe more of an old-fashioned style, old-fashioned manager, you know, difficult to break down, hard-working. That's what Newcastle are a hard-working team under Benitez as well. The players do work hard. Yeah. And away to Arsenal, it has all the makings of a high-scoring game. The derby can be, and both teams will want to win that one. So it could be a perfect opportunity for Kane to really do well, you know. So yeah, I won't sell him before that one for sure. But if he lets us down in that one, it's sort of like, and you know, if Barnes gets another goal or Haller scores a few against Norwich, then I'll be thinking, well, these players are 4 or 5 million cheaper, and I can free up that cash.
Cool. Okay, Brian at Blades Attack says last week he asked if Luke Shaw is being overlooked. So this week he would like to know if Shaw's injury has any effect on his desirability of his teammates, assuming, of course, the fact that they let Jordan Ayew score isn't already cause for panic. So, Jay. Luke Shaw being out, what do we
So
think?
I presume he's focusing on
Impact on the team.
defence here, because
Yeah.
it wouldn't affect how I saw Martial or Rashford.
Yeah.
As far as defence goes, Luke Shaw was my favoured way into that defence if I was going to get a Manchester United defender. The reason I didn't make any move towards a Man United defender was because it was only 2 game weeks worth of data, and I feel like Chelsea game could have gone very, very differently on the first day of the season if Chelsea had converted their chances in the first half. So I wasn't looking at defence thinking, which I think a lot of people were thinking, that this looks like a very, very solid defence. I thought the potential was there. I do look at Wan-Bissaka and Maguire as transfers that should make that defence a lot more solid. But I just wanted to see more. It's the same approach I had with Chelsea. I wanted to see more of these young players before I brought them in. The games I watched, Shaw was my favourite way in. I think Wan-Bissaka can definitely potentially get bonus points if the clean sheets are there. So there's that extra points for Wan-Bissaka.
Yeah.
As far as Maguire goes, he does carry a goal threat, but he doesn't always realise that goal threat into actual goals. So with Shaw out, I think potentially that defence isn't... I wouldn't say Shaw's the best defensive left-back, but I think potentially he's better than Young, who I presume is going to come in there. I am not interested in that defence yet. When Luke Shaw is back, we had, of course, that chance which he didn't get because Martial finished it. I think Shaw has an attacking threat, and then he'd fit the mould of defenders I have, like Zinchenko, Digne and Alexander-Arnold, who can get attacking returns, and then you hope they also get the clean sheet. So for me right now, Man United's a bit of a wait and see, and I'm hoping for Luke Shaw to have a speedy recovery, because I am interested in bringing him in.
Yeah, I picked up Shaw last week, and then when it came to the crunch of actually choosing between the Man United defenders, I actually went with Wan-Bissaka. On one hand, it's worked out okay, obviously, because Shaw is now injured. On the other hand, obviously, he got 0 points. The reason I went with United defence is because I seen that Wolves game, and I genuinely felt like United had taken a bit of a step forward.
Yeah, that's fair.
And I genuinely thought maybe, just maybe, they've got their stuff together now. And what was worrying me watching that game was I was thinking, you know what? Wan-Bissaka is so highly owned in this game. If he gets a clean sheet, I'm genuinely in trouble here. And I was thinking, Robertson is he looks dangerous, but he hadn't delivered at that point. And I could hear all this chatter of people selling on wildcards to free up cash and things like that. And I'm thinking, well, why don't I follow suit? It would give me some money to get Martial, who's been looking dangerous. Why don't I just kind of bite the bullet and do it as well? Because if Man United get a clean sheet, I'm going to be in a world of hurt anyway. One Liverpool defender still, if they get a clean sheet, then happy days, but hopefully Arsenal at least score one against them. And I guess it was a bit short-sighted from my part as well. It was just kind of, this game week I prefer Wan-Bissaka, and I maybe should have thought a bit more about it. Because I genuinely, like last week, I genuinely said, I think we've got off double Liverpool defence too early. And I still believe that. I genuinely believe that. Like, I think if they deliver a clean sheet this game week, I'm going to find it very hard if I wildcard in the international break not to consider going to Liverpool at the back again.
Especially with Newcastle, the following fixture.
Yeah, and especially if Robson does drop that, that 0.1 and does do something, then it could really be a kind of reverse transfer almost. But as for like thinking about in defence, what can I say? I just think that United have been sketchy at the back this season anyway, and I genuinely feel like without Luke Shaw, they're just going to be even sketchier. So I will hold a bit longer. So Brian, if you have United, I'd maybe give it another game week or two. But if you don't, I wouldn't really be considering them at this point. So that's
especially with a dodgy goalkeeper.
You said that, not me.
Just looking at the Van Aanholt goal, I mean, goalkeepers should not be beaten that easy at the near post. And there is a catalogue of videos and goals that you look at that you think that's, labelled immediately as a quality goal, but you look back at it and De Gea has just been beaten so easily at his near post. That continues to happen, and that will not be the only time that happens this season. He's a good goalkeeper. He's not the world-class keeper that Man United and everyone else believe he is. So even if the defence is solid, the minute they get a decent shot on goal, there's a chance he could mess it up. And you look, considering if you compare him to Alisson and Ederson and Lloris, I mean, Lloris makes a lot of errors, but if you look at the amount of errors and near post goals De Gea concedes, it's a lot more than anyone else. If you compare him to the top three, you put him in the top three of Ederson and Alisson, he's nowhere near the quality as them. So even if Man United do put up a brave performance, it's nothing like Tom Heaton where you think he's going to make 20 saves in a game. The minute something goes towards his near post, he's got that susceptibility to concede easy goals. That's another massive problem for Manchester United, in my eyes. Personally, I mean, I'm not afraid to share my opinion, hence the reason I shouted abuse Salah for last season. But
I wouldn't necessarily agree with you as wholeheartedly, but I do agree with the points you're making, because I think a lot of people's opinions on De Gea was skewed when Man United had a season where defensively they weren't that great a couple of years ago, but De Gea was making lots and lots of saves, and he was the reason they were staying in games. And I think he's a goalkeeper that has purple patches, which you remember, because you remember all the great saves and the great performances, and then you kind of overlook the errors he makes, and sometimes it's fundamental errors compared to goalkeepers that have potentially better fundamentals than De Gea does. So while I'm not as anti De Gea as Kurt just sounded, I do agree with quite a few of his points there.
Okay, I'll just cover this one really quickly. At FPL Tips, we will answer your other question on Instagram. So any questions we don't get to answer tonight, guys, we will answer over on Instagram. So make sure you go over and follow us there. But he did send us a couple of questions, but just this one, he said, is it possible to get Pope's clean sheet back? As a Ryan owner, no, it's not. You can't have it. Sorry.
As a Pope owner, I'm with you there.
Moving on quickly. Brett, have we got another question in the chat, please?
Yeah, I quite like this question, actually. It's from Brian Newell, and he says, should we ignore fixtures and just captain either Salah or Sterling the whole season? Rather than being he's now 3-3 for picking the wrong one, basically.
Yeah.
And
the problem is, what if you go between the two and then you keep choosing the wrong one each week?
Well, that would
be my luck.
Exactly. I think that's what he's saying he's done. He's now 3-3 for getting it wrong, basically. So I'm assuming he must have captained Sterling this week, and obviously Salah did the business. And ironically, I've done like a zombie team in like another league, and I've basically done like a set and forget team, and I've just got Salah captained every week. Basically, I can't make any changes, and that team is doing better than my actual team at the moment, which is pretty painful, So, what do you reckon, Jay? Is there merit in just picking one and just leaving it on there? Mitigated circumstances like injuries aside.
Well, I think the whole reason we do make the changes is we're trying to get the big haul on our captain, so we're trying to read the fixtures. You're probably finding yourself getting a lot less stress if you just stuck with one. But if I think back to last year where I was getting the majority of the captaincy calls right, that set me up for pretty much the whole season at the beginning, because I was getting on the Aguero 20 points and the Salah 20 points. So I think there is merit in trying to do it. I wouldn't suggest having any more than 2 captaincy options, which is why I am not looking at the likes of Kane and Aguero, because I've pretty much, unless something drastically changes, stuck my hat on Sterling and Salah being the top scorers this season. So I don't need any of the other really high budget players, because once you're over 11 million, I think you have to be a captaincy option. Otherwise, you shouldn't really be in the side until, if you get your team value up ridiculously high, then maybe. But if you want a less stressful life, then just stick it on one of them. But
or you could just do what half my mini league did last week, which was forget the Friday deadline and still have their captaincy on Salah from last week.
That would definitely work as well.
It's just really annoying.
But yeah, I just think the reason we play this game is we're chasing those high elations of a game week where we get the captaincy call spot on. We get a ridiculous amount of points. We all get all excited when we get over 100 points, for example. We're all chasing that. That's kind of the fun of the game. I feel like if I just stuck it on one player and wasn't making decisions, although I am trying to make less decisions, that hasn't worked because of my terrible start. But the whole idea is, at least captaincy-wise, I know it's these two players. I'm going to try and pick the one that gets the most points. Kind of don't let the other big players affect me too much, because if you think about it season long, as long as Salah and Sterling outscore all the others, then I'm justified in my decision of sticking with those two.
Yeah, it's funny because before, again, years back when I first got into FPL, I think 2012 maybe, it was the season where Luis Suarez got like, I don't know, 30 goals or something for Liverpool, and obviously hat tricks against Norwich and that kind of thing. And I left captaincy on him for like the whole season, and ended up being like my best season until last year. I got 22k or 25k or something, and then beat that finally this last season with 22k. So that it can pay off when you take away that decision process, you know. And I'm looking at Sterling now, for example. So let's say I had Salah and Sterling, which I don't at the moment, but let's say I did. You know, Sterling's got Brighton at home, Norwich away, Watford at home. He got a hat-trick against Watford last season. Norwich away, like Norwich obviously a great attacking team, but they're going to concede goals, and Brighton at home. And I'm thinking, well, this is one of the reasons why I actually sold Salah, partly, because I thought, well, I can just leave it on Sterling for the next few weeks. And not have that decision with Newcastle, you know, Salah. So I don't know, there is merit in it for sure, you know, maybe not for the entire season, but maybe if you're just leaving it on one player for a couple of weeks, it can work. I'm kind of thinking to do that on Sterling now for the next three, because even if he blanks in one, you're bound to catch a 16-pointer in one of the three, possibly, you know.
And he will definitely be one of the highest captained in those 3 game weeks, if not in all of them.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
I say early on in the season, there is, yes, okay, you can gain some major margins by going a differential. Like if somebody did Pookie, then hats off, you know. But I genuinely think like early doors, often there's a reason why the majority go with these players, you know, as captaincy choices. So it's always worth, I think, at least early on, going with at least one of the top 2 captaincy options, and they're almost always Salah or Sterling, you know. So
Yeah.
Okay. This one's for you. Well, it's for all of us, Kurt, but I'd like to direct it at you. You've just used your wildcard, but at FPL Half Pint would like to know, what is the biggest points hit you would take before thinking you need a wildcard? So generally, how many hits would you take before considering a wildcard? And why is it that you went with a wild card rather than taking the hits last game week, as opposed to taking, say, like a -12 or a -16 to fix your team?
If I had taken a -16 and I still scored 43 points, I wouldn't be here right now.
I can't make the stream, guys.
Well, anyway.
I think -8 is the lowest I'd take, just simply because anything else, -12, and you think a couple of bad points, a couple of bad scores, no one gets any returns, all of a sudden that's potentially a -8 already before you even started the game week. You can't make that up. And even then, you're still miles behind. Obviously, if it gets to the point, let's say if it gets to the point this week, Walker Peters, Mount, Martial are out, let's say a freak injury to Sterling and Sterling's out, I would be forced into making those changes because I'd only have 10 players able to play. So I would, you know, that's a weird alternative, but -8 is the most I'd take, because let's say if I took a -8 this week, I brought Salah in as captain, he scored 2 goals. I brought in Pookie in and he scored a goal. I've made that up and more already. And I think it's manageable at -8. Whereas the minute you go into double figures, a couple of bad scores from those players you brought in, and if you look at the good scores potentially of the players you brought out, if they're not injured and it's just a risky thing you're trying to do, all of a sudden there's a massive points difference there that you're unable to make up without really, really shrewd business, personally.
Yeah, somebody's just taken a hit and it's gone very badly. I think that's maybe what's putting me off because I think back to this time last season and I think, would I have taken a -8 just like that to get Aguero, or even Kevin? Hell yes. Like, I wouldn't even think about it. I'd just be like, boom, done, dusted, forget about it. They're in your team now. Like, whatever happens, happens. As long as they don't get injured and they stop playing, because Pep roulette, then you've got them, they're in, bish bash bosh, forget about it. But I think that -4 last week has kind of like dented my confidence a little bit. And now I'm suddenly feeling like, what if I take this -8 this week and I'm sat here going next week, what have I done? Like I've just sold Kane, he scored a brace against Arsenal, and I've just sold Trossard or Martial. Martial plays, or Trossard actually is allowed one of these VAR, offside goals or whatever that he keeps getting. And suddenly I'm kind of, why did I do that when I could have waited one more week, done a -4, or if I had other areas to fix, just done my wildcard over the international break with a load of other people and get the price rises from it. So for the question, I think if I've got 4 or more players that I want to move on, then for me it's a wildcard. Now, looking at my team, I've got probably 5 or 6 that I could easily change, but I'm not desperate to move 4 or more players on. Like, I really don't feel like my team, like most people will have a very similar midfield to me. Most people would have Sterling, Salah, Martial, and Dendoncker or Cantwell. So it's only really Trossard that I've got different, where most people will have, say, a KDB, I suppose, or a Mount. So for me it seems like quite like it's only really then my defense I'm looking at. And so I think like a -12, I'd be like, okay, like now I'm getting into wildcard territory. There's definitely things when I look at my team that I could sort, but can it wait for a week or two? Then yeah, probably. The only thing that's being, I think, a real struggle this season, and it's and I'll say almost exactly what I said last week, is the price changes. And look, we've already seen this week that it's just not going to slow down. This is what this season's going to be like. And that could be the difference between you getting players and not getting players. If you feel like you haven't got some of the major players that are happening now, your Pookies, your Sterlings, your Salahs, maybe an Everton defender or a Liverpool defender, then yeah, I'd be seriously considering wildcarding at that point. But for me, it's 4 or more players where 2 of those players are pretty much not playing or are dead. And 2 of them are just ones that I really feel like I'm in desperate need of having. And that's when I'd consider a wild card. And that's the only reason why I think I've held off this week, is that I don't feel I'm quite there yet. For myself. Jay, you still got your wild card. Interested to know what you think on this. Where do you feel the wild card kicks in for you in terms of how many players you want to change? And do you have a plan of when you might like to use yours, or are you sailing with the wind?
Okay, so the way I see it is, if I'm taking a -8, then that should be when I'm considering using the wildcard, if I've got it. I'm not anti taking a -8, but it would have to be when I don't have a wildcard to use, and I feel like the likelihood of me making up those points is high. So that could be in your blank game weeks or something like that, where I think, okay, this player isn't going to score points no matter what, and the players I'm bringing in, unless they get reds and yellow cards, they should be scoring some points. So
maybe if you're going to consider captaining them as well.
Yeah, especially if you're considering captaining them as well, if you're going to double those points. Right now, my plan, I don't really have a plan for my wildcard. I don't think my team is too far away from what I would want it to be. Literally another -4, and I'd say it's pretty close. There is the issue of the international break. I don't like going into it without 2 transfers, so it could be that I see some things happen and I decide to play it, but usually I play my wild card quite early in the game week, so I can tinker around and so on. So I'm not sure I like the idea of watching the international games and then playing it, because then I've missed a lot of the price rises I might have been going for anyway. Yeah, I don't really have a plan for my wildcard. I usually would be, I'm going to play it Game Week 4, I'm going to play it Game Week 8. The reason I'm not too sure is because there's a potential for blanks in the first half of the season. With that being a possibility, I don't know if they'll be wanting to use my wildcard at that point. To be fair, I've not really looked that far ahead because I've been so focused on fixing the team I've currently got. But I believe, if I'm correct, there's the potential for Liverpool to have a blank. And a lot of people have Liverpool players. Then they're maybe transferring them out for that game week and then wanting to transfer them in. I don't know if the wildcard could help me there. So right now I'm trying to get through without using my wildcard. But if I got anywhere near a -8, then I'd potentially be like, okay, maybe now is the time to play it.
And you've looked at my team, Jay, this week, and you just don't think it's worthy of a -8, despite me only being one City player going into that fabulous fixture.
Well, I just feel like you only need one fixture to not go the way you assume it is, and it would have been wasted. So I'm of the opinion that you should be aiming to get to what you're aiming to get towards. But for all you know, one of the players that hasn't necessarily been performing the way you like could get a big score in this game week. Just because they haven't got the scores yet, we've only played 3 game weeks so far. They could come in with a big score, could have a decent fixture. For instance, Delafeu, he could have got an assist against West Ham. He could have got a goal.
Oh, actually.
Yeah. And then I would be singing a completely different tune about him. So there's always the chance that someone that, yes, you're looking at getting them out, but if they've got a decent enough fixture, as long as you feel like there's a potential for you to cover the points, I wouldn't rush into getting the team you want. Hence why I didn't play my wildcard, because I thought if I take a -4 here, I'm not too far off of what I want overall. So
I think the thing that's worrying me is that if I don't take anything this week, I don't do anything else this week, I can see me going into the international break still really wanting another City attack. And so then I'm absolutely happy to take a -4, but that would mean me taking it almost immediately as the international break starts, because basically by the time I get out the other side of an international break, I am not going to be able to afford that player. Like the way the prices are at the moment, let's just say KDB or Aguero returns this week, you know, there are going to be so many people transferring those players in that come out the other side of the international break. The likelihood, I mean, I've got a nice buffer at the moment, maybe not if I go for Aguero, but if I go for KDB, you know, especially if I go down to say a Barnes from Kane, I've got a nice little buffer there at the minute. But, you know, if I wanted to say go for a Haller, then it's a bit more squidgy there. And it's that squidginess that's concerning me, because by the time we get out the other end of the international break, one of those City assets is going to cost me 0.3, 0.4, maybe even more by that point. I go early on that -4, and I could end up with an injury in Inter's. Any old thing could happen, and then I'm right back to the -8 where I've already started.
But the plus side is you do have your wildcard still.
Yeah.
So if you did find yourself suddenly in a situation where you were like, oh no, you've got your wildcard to play.
Yeah, good. But I'm a bit like you with that. Like, I'd rather kind of go early with it and catch the rises.
Yeah.
So it is difficult. Like, that's why I feel so stuck this week, because it just feels like the options are very limited on where I go. You know, it's either take a big hit now and risk it, or you know, or pretty much kind of stick and hope for the best. You know, so it is difficult. Okay, we'll have one more question for the chat, and then I think we'll move on to Jaffer's corner.
Okay, sure. There's a question from Show Me the Mane FC, who's in the chat quite a bit, and I think he's actually having a bit of a storm of a season by the sounds of it. He's ranked pretty highly, from what I'm gathering. He wants to know, what do you aim for to average each game week? What's the kind of target you kind of set yourself that you would sort of think it's a decent week? Kurt, do you have like a certain amount of points that you would be happy with each week? I know, look, averages can change every game week, but is there a certain target that you set yourself where you think it's a decent score?
4. 4. 4 points. No, I don't.
4. I thought you were saying, oh. I was like, oh.
I don't look too much into points, because at the end of the day, you can, score 60 points one week and be 20 points above the average, but you can score 70 points the next week and be 25 points below the average. Every week it will change. What I look for example, if I'm going to use an example, I use my team this week. I'll look at if I've got a captain I'm really confident in. So this week, Sterling at home to Brighton. I'm really fancying Sterling. I think it could be a second hat-trick of the season, potentially. If not, it's a guaranteed goal in my eyes. However, now I've said that, watch him guarded. I think that's a guaranteed goal. I look at just every other person on the team, and I think, is there points to be had there? And I'm looking, let's say Mason Mount, if he plays home Sheffield United, I think there's points there. Martial, I think there's points there. Aubameyang and Son, if I keep hold of them, there's points there. If I look at Bobby Firmino, maybe the wishy-washy one of the big 6 that I've got, but there's points there. And you look at the defence, I've got decent chance of getting points there. And one other thing I look at is coming off the bench, what I've got. Now, this week I'm left a bit short. Lundstram away against Chelsea. There's not much point me talking about him, because I don't think they're going to come away with a clean sheet. If they do, that's not a good feeling. And also Walker-Peters. I've got Martinelli, but he doesn't play. And I've got Walker-Peters, and again, that game I think has got goals written all over it. So I just look at the team, and if I'm confident in the team, I think that's all I aim for. I don't really aim for any points, because I could have a really good game week and it could be 50 points, but the average could be 30. So I don't think it's aiming for points. It's looking at your team, and if you're confident in your team, that's what I aim for.
Jay, any thoughts? Is there a particular target that you have?
I would kind of agree with Kurt there, because for instance, if we take the first game week, I got 77 points.
Yeah,
that saw me at about 1.5 million rank. So, that is probably the best game week 1 I've had playing this game, and it was probably the worst rank I'd had. So for me, it is about that average. If I'm above the average, and I see those green arrows, then I know I'm on the right path. And that is, again, about your team. If you're looking at your team and you're thinking, this is a team that will get me points, you're going to have a bad game week here and there. But long term, is it going to keep you rising up those ranks? If I'm seeing myself above the average, I'm happy. The higher above the average, and the higher those green arrows, the happier I am. But yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say there's a point target that I'm like, okay, need to hit it, because there's going to be fluctuations. There's going to be game weeks where there's very few clean sheets, like the one just gone. There's going to be game weeks where there's a ridiculous amount of goals, and some of your players are nowhere near any of them. So I don't aim for any particular point target.
Yeah, same. Just above the average. Happy.
I was actually looking at his team. He's 869th in the world.
Nice.
Show me the Mane.
Awesome. Fair play to you, bud.
With the likes of Salah, De Bruyne and Sterling and Pookie. So all the big hitters, pretty much. I'd say the only one he hasn't got is Barnes.
Yeah.
I love how you say that, like, I've got him.
The only reason I haven't
like
is
he's
I couldn't
crazy.
afford Pookie.
Like he's essential.
The only reason I don't have him, I couldn't afford Pookie. If I had the money for Pookie, I wouldn't have been anywhere near Barnes.
Lots of people in the chat saying similar, about 60 points that they're saying. And before I even read the comments, I was thinking about 60, because looking at my kind of previous bests, and granted, I've never had an amazing finish, but last year I got 22k, I think. And that was about like 2,350 points or something. And when you divide that by 38, it does come to around 60 points a week, And I kind of already knew that at the start of the season. So even though in game week 1 I had 65, which compared to the norm on Twitter and everyone's getting 80 points and 75, it was a bad week to start with 65. But that was a little bit of comfort for me, because I did think, actually, if I can get 60 points every week, it's not so bad. And we saw then in game week 2, a lot of the people that got 80s and 75s ended up getting 40, 45 in game week 2. So if I had 65 in game week 1 and 65 in game week 2, I'd probably be higher than all of those, Like, if you can get over 60 a week, it's good. It's obviously you're gonna have a very good finish, but like you guys said, we can never tell what the how the game week's going to go and what the average is going to be. So lots of people in the comments saying if you can get 10 points above the average each game week, that's the ideal, 10, 15 points, or like a game week rank of 1.5 million. So maybe the top 25% of the players every single week. So yeah, there's so many fluctuations to know exactly what you're targeting. But I do think that is a bit of comfort for me. If I get over 60, even if it's not a great score in the scheme of things, to me, I still think, well, that's still above the average target, Yeah.
Cool. Okay, then we'll move on to the Jeffers Corner, because we actually have 2 questions from 2 different Jeffs tonight. One of our Jeffers Corner questions comes from @FFScout_Jeff. And he would like to know, what is our favourite non-alcoholic drink? So, Kurt, what's your favourite non-alcoholic drink?
Don't know.
Well, I couldn't really see what brand that was.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay, now there we go. That's how you do it.
Not an ad. Just heavily addicted.
Cool.
I don't
Jay?
It's going to be one that some people may know, but I imagine most won't. And it's called Guarana. It's a drink quite popular in Brazil. Yeah, but it's not going to be one. If you go to a Brazilian restaurant in the UK anywhere, you can ask for it and they'll serve it to you.
And what is it? Is it a fruit drink?
Off the top of my head, I can't remember what's in it, but it's a fruity fizzy drink.
Oh, okay, cool. Brett, yourself?
So favorite non-alcoholic drink?
Mm-hmm.
Is it going to be boring to say like classic Coke? Like you can't beat Coca-Cola.
No.
Like,
Yes, you can. Pepsi.
Like oh no.
I think from not from a can though or a bottle. I'm more from either the tap, like on tap, like
oh wow,
herbs,
okay.
or in the glass bottle with some ice in the sun with a bit of slice of lemon in there.
Yeah.
Or Coca-Cola vanilla was top drawer when they sold that. When I was younger, I was like obsessed with that. I got like an addiction to it. I was like drinking it every day.
I literally, as a kid, got told we had some cans in the kitchen. Run into the kitchen, run in so fast, my socks hit the kitchen floor, and I literally did a 360.
Okay, I'm not gonna lie here. Anyone who watches the stream will probably know I'm a little bit obsessed with water. I'm a big fan, and I drink probably way more than my body needs, to be honest. But that's really boring.
I was going to say, please have something else.
Yeah.
Please have something else.
Wasn't boring. That's boring.
Yeah, I know. I did feel that, so I was like, I'm gonna have a backup here. And I'm actually going to go a bit old school, so I don't have them very often, but like my favourites, if they're even available somewhere when we go out or whatever, is so the old school cream soda. Does anyone remember that? Like the cream soda pop, or Dandelion and Burdock. I really like that as well. So
That's it.
yeah. So if I had the choice of one of those and I was out and about, then yeah, I would choose that over water. And maybe have a glass of water as well.
Just on the side.
Yeah, because I can. But yeah,
in case you're wondering as well, stream, Nim's favourite food is unseasoned chicken.
Oh God, no.
Blandest thing you can get.
Food
and chips without salt.
Oh no, you can't have chips without salt and vinegar. What are you up to? Give over. He's just picking on me tonight because I was late, because I tried a new computer and it didn't work.
33 minutes late. I've never been so worried in my life.
And he's only picking on me because he was really late last week.
I know what you're talking about.
Really, really late last week. Okay, moving on. Going back to our well-known and seasoned Jeffers at Thunder66 UK, and he says, this one's a bit more complicated here, so we're going to try and wrap our heads around this one. I'm sure Jeffers is trying to build a bit of a profile on us, guys. So, I'm just putting that out there. These are quite in-depth questions. So, you, the Wildcats, clockwise from your screen, and you're stuck on a desert island.
Sorry, I was trying to figure out who was clockwise.
On the stream,
it's probably going to be different to what we're seeing.
Yeah, go from on the stream.
And we're with a brain surgeon and a concert pianist, and with our biggest crush as well on a remote in a remote area, and all of us have been bitten by snakes. It's not fatal dose, but it will be several months of painful recuperation from this snake's bite. So you have one vial of the anti-venom, which will give a complete and immediate cure to whoever gets it. Who do you choose to give it to? So if we followed all of that,
Yes.
okay. So Jay, you can go first.
Okay, I had a couple of answers, and I feel like I have my logical answer and I have my selfish answer. Selfish answer is I give it to myself because I have a wife at home with kids. I shouldn't be having a crush, and I need to get home to them. But other than that, the logical answer would be to give it to nobody and wait to see if anyone has any complications because of the snake bite. Because whilst it might not be fatal to people in general, someone might have issues with it more than everyone else.
That's very good. See, now for me, I was like, it depends on how remote we are. Like, is there transport, or like,
Town's just 2 minutes away. There's a
hospital.
Just walk to the hospital.
Because I would say I'd give it to the brain surgeon, because he's going to go on
and everyone else
save lives, and he's going to be needed if he can get in a car and get away. However, if we really are stuck in this remote place, really stuck, and there is just us, then I think I would give it either to whoever is the most useful, as in the person who can make the fire and find the food and stuff like that. Or I would say we'll all share it, because whilst it won't cure any of us completely, it means at least we can all suffer together and not be in as lengthy a painful a time together. So it's probably the one I'd edge towards the most. What about you, Brett? What are you thinking?
I'm always so confused with these questions. Okay, I'm just going to give it to the pianist. That way he can serenade for a night, a bit like on Titanic when they're sinking, like the violin player. I'll have my biggest
listening to somebody tinkling their keys.
Yeah, and my biggest crush will be there. It'll be our last night together. The guy can serenade us on the piano, and then we'll all go out together. That'll be fine.
Whoa! Nobody said anything about dying. We're just gonna have a lengthy, painful.
Oh right, okay. Well. There you are, still. Same answer. I thought we were dying.
Kurt?
So basically, to simplify it, it's just whoever you would save completely. And
yeah, pretty much.
I personally, I would save my biggest crush, which fortunately is myself.
So you're saving two people. Well done.
That was not
okay. On that note,
that's genius.
Do we have the polls, please?
Yes, we do.
Let's just leave it there. We don't need to say anything else.
Okay, so the polls were based off of some of the questions that you guys answered. We didn't get to all of them, but again, do go and check us out on Instagram, where we will be trying to answer more of the stream questions. The first one was regarding Salah or Mane, just seeing which one you would go with. The results are 94%. To any guesses on who?
Salah.
Firmino.
Firmino wasn't an option. I apologise for that. Otherwise, it might have been a completely different.
Salah got 15 points and Mane got 3. So obviously Salah this week. Let's ask again when Mane gets a hat trick.
All right. Shall we just ask every stream? And just poll it all together.
Exactly.
We also had who's more essential out of Timu Pukki, Ashley Barnes, Sebastian Haller, or Tammy Abraham. And again, quite a landslide, and I'm sure you can all guess who it's for again. It is for it's Timu Pukki at 88%. Tammy Abraham getting no love, with Ashley Barnes and Sebastian Haller getting 5% each.
I suspect that's because we're all a bit not sure whether Abraham is nailed.
Take Pukki out of the equation, then it would be interesting.
Yeah.
Yes, true. And then we've got Game Week 4 captain. We've got 4 picks for you guys to pick, and then other. These are taken off of the Fantasy Football Scout website's poll with the 4 favourites, and then we'll see what you guys think as well. And we've got Game Week 4 captain for Aguero, Sterling, Salah, Pukki, or other. And the landslide winner is
Sterling.
Yeah, Sterling 88%.
Did Pookie get any votes?
Pookie got no votes. He may have got a vote, but it wouldn't be high enough to get a percentage.
I might give him the voice this week, to be honest.
Yeah.
Aguero and Salah got 5% each. No one else is on other. So literally everybody is on Aguero, Sterling or Salah for this game week.
Brilliant.
So yeah, while those polls weren't necessarily the most competitive, at least we got an idea what all of you guys are thinking. So thank you guys so much for joining in on this stream. If you have enjoyed it, please hit that like button, subscribe and hit that notification bell so you know when we go live. Check out us on social media. We have, of course, the Twitter handle, FPL WildCats, and the Instagram, where we will be answering some other questions we didn't get to today. Please feel free to check out all the links in the description, including our Patreon, if you are interested in Discord and separate mini leagues that you can play in. Thank you guys, and we'll see you next week.